I went into the tavern, ignored Theo, and realized the musicians were playing variations on the funeral sequence. I sighed. Why do they play this every time? It's very strange. I said to myself, in Arachnes, I realized, was a muttered minstrels. I smiled as I realized that. Even after almost 20 years of separation, I still kept my thoughts Chisa-friendly, as all families would have said. Well, they would have called her Chita, or Chitetta, Chitachila, or Chayu, instead of Chisa. Anyway, I went over to a young Pronya. Younger than me, but old enough to marry. She had white fur and dark blue eyes that watched everyone warily. Her sleeves were long and full, like an unmarried woman's would be. Her robe was dark yellow, her skirts green so dark they were almost black. There was a heavy cloak sitting beside her, similar to mine. A Cronya's fur did not do much against the Vixic cold, and Arachne's clothes were supposed to keep you cool. Unfortunately, it was hard to find someone who knew how to make clothes for us. More misfortune was that I wasn't very good at sewing. Chisa had done that. Yes, I know, I left all the sewing to my wife and never thought I would need to do it myself. Very funny. Anyway, I sat with her. Good morning, Apollo, she said. She was the only person, aside from my wife and family, who'd ever dropped my title. Good morning, Nilu, I said. This was one of our little things. She used Lapusian diminutives on my name, and I used Arachne's diminutives on her. The children are gone for now. I purposefully made it sound like they were my children. They were not. I had sent them off to the coast for this. Well, not just for this. I wanted to be alone in general, but this was part of why. Oh, so is this why you haven't been able to visit me? Nilu asked, smiling. I nodded. Yes. I sighed. They're difficult. I had to admit, to myself at least, that I did care about them. I'd left early into my marriage with Chisa, so we hadn't had any children. I regretted that decision every day. I'd left Chisa behind and alone because I hadn't been able to face what my clan had done. I could have at least taken her with me, but I hadn't been planning on being gone for so long. My wanderings had brought me to Vix, and then the war had broken out. So I ended up in Inna. Now I had to deal with these 5 stupid children who were going to get themselves and probably me killed. Nilu nodded. Children often are. I feel sorry for old Woziaf. He had to deal with 11 siblings, she said. Old Wovan was her oldest brother. Yes, their family did have 12 children. Old Wovan, 4 pairs of twins and a set of triplets. Their father had died just after the triplets were born, leaving old Wovan to become the closest that they had to a father at about 10. The next siblings down, Nilu and her sister, had been 5. How's your wife? I smiled, but there was sadness behind it, as there always was when we asked each other these questions. How would I know? How's your Aikis? That was someone you were quoting, or just a very good friend. Hard to tell. That was one thing I liked about their comic. There were a lot of diminutive endings, but at least they were clear. Iso was just generally affectionate. Whether it was your friend, or your sibling, or your spouse, or just a very good friend, you couldn't tell. Nilu gave her sad smile. I have the same answer. We'll have to distract from the pain. What was his name? I asked. I don't think you told me that. We'd always just said my wife, or my pjatchaf. She frowned and shook her head. No, I don't think we did. His name was Luki. I called him Gigisiaf. What about your wife? Chita, or Chiu. I called her Chisa. Her full name, almost never said, was Chinaya. It meant cinnamon. We weren't sure why she'd been called that. Do you miss her? Nilu asked. I laughed. Is that a question? Of course I do, every day. She nodded. Yes, and I miss Digishaf. I wish I could see him again. I nodded. So do I, but she smiled. If I went back to Lepus, my friend would kill me. And the Senescents are between my wife and I finished. Neither of us entirely said why we couldn't go back. Always one started and the other finished. I could try to get across the border. A good husband wouldn't let anything keep him from his wife, not even the Senescents. She nodded. Yes, she sighed and sat back. Do you think they're waiting for us? Jesus, very sweet. She cries when I squash bugs. She'll wait for me. Besides, Meaties exists, I said. She frowned. No, he doesn't say anything about marrying when you're already married. I blinked. Really? Strange. Anyway, is your Aikiso waiting? She nodded. I think so. He didn't really like anyone else. I don't think he wanted that life. He was raised by friars. I blinked. Friars? They're in Lepus? Yes, a few. Sol usually stops them, but there are a few outside of Dallas. Oh, interesting. She nodded. He was a strange boy, but I loved him. She laughed a little. Even in the mafia, he still said they are obvious. I frowned. I don't know that one. I didn't know many, really. It's not very long. She laughed again. I still remember the incipit. Jarwavies vie dialische diagnaso faraljahan. I sighed. How do the Adelicides deal with that language? Well, they don't speak it anymore. Just during... She frowned. Whatever it is they call what they do in the churches. And some prayers, he tells me. How does a boy raised by friars end up in the mafia? I asked. Aren't they supposed to be good, beyond messengers or something? She shrugged. I don't know. I didn't think I should ask. And I don't think that's a good description for him. Yeah, I don't know. No, I'm sorry. She shrugged again. Nah, I don't know a better one. Can you tell me about the children? I sat back. Stupid children. And it's an interesting group. 2 fairies, 2 Vixor, and a dragon. She looked surprised. A dragon? I nodded. Yes, he saw what's obvious to the rest of us. She grinned. Finally! How old are they? 1 fairy and the Vixor are 15. The other fairy is 16. The dragon 7. I laughed. We all thought the fairies was twins, or that the younger one was older. They were so mad when they found out, and the older one was even more mad when she found out we thought she was the younger. She's really small, so I guess this happens a lot. Don't tell her I said that. She laughed too. What's 7 for a cronio? I frowned. About 15, I think. How did a group like that form? I sighed. As I want. Well, you live in Vex, you know. She nodded. Oh, I see. Yes, but... I sighed. I don't know. I love him. I think that... Well, Cheese and I never had any children, as far as I know. I really didn't want to consider that I might have left her to raise children on her own. So maybe they're like the children we didn't have. She nodded. I understand. I sat back. I hope that when all this is over, I can return to my wife. She nodded again. And I hope I can return to my pshachaf.